Hi there. I'm Realtor Bert today. I'm also broker owner of Santino Properties LLC. Um, well, here we are in August of 2024. I'm not sure when you'll be watching this video. However, there are a lot of changes in the real estate industry, and I thought I'd take a moment to record a video, not just for my family and friends, but also for inactive clients, folks that are in my universe, so to speak, right? Maybe some of you are in my audience. You receive emails from me on a regular basis and so forth. I was just talking to somebody today that told me, "Oh yeah, I get your emails all the time." So I wanted to make sure that I'm being proactive in just trying to disseminate some basic facts about the lawsuit that was filed against the National Association of Realtors, of which, of course, I'm a member, right? And why? Because if you want access to the MLS, the Multiple Listing Service, you must be a member of the local board. If you're a member of the local board, you also must be a member of the Texas Association of Realtors, or Texas Realtors, and then by virtue of that fact, then you must also be a member of the National Association of Realtors, or NAR, right? So here we are post settlement, and I'm going to kind of run down some of the factual items associated with this particular settlement, and kind of the mentality, and where do we go from here type of thing, from here on out. So it's really a matter of the old way versus the new way. So I'm going to do some justice to explaining this to you, so that it's really simple to understand, because I'm sure there's a lot of innuendo, there's a lot of hype around it, there's a lot of, well, I don't have to pay commissions anymore, I read an article and this and that kind of thing. A lot of media negativity, and yeah, you know what? Some information that's not exactly factual. So here it is. Let's start by going with a recap of this particular lawsuit, and the kind of the settlement that ensued. So there was first of all, a release of liability by settling. Okay, and in doing so, 1 million plus members, like myself, the smaller ones, if you will, we're basically now released from liability, right? As well as state and local associations, the aforementioned MLSs. However, those that are not included in this release are those firms that basically made $2 billion plus in revenue in 2022. That's how that was determined, right? They had to, I guess, provide settlements of their own, right? But what has changed as a result of this settlement are a few different things. There's about 5 points I'm going to make here. First of all, there can no longer be compensation offers on the MLS, the Multiple Listing Service. That is to say, whereas before there was always a field in our copy of the MLS that indicated how much upfront that the sellers were willing to pay for a buyer's brokerage. Well, that was considered to be, as according to this lawsuit, as being a form of steering of clients or buyers to certain listings based on what commission was being offered. That there was a complicit nature to this, and that basically it was a violation of the Sherman Antitrust Act of 1894, which basically prohibits us in business from conspiring to charge the same amount. Okay, so there was a conspiracy. They thought it was conspiratory, right? On what was happening before, and this is according to the courts. Okay, so the second thing that was changed now are the commissions are negotiable, as they always have been, by the way. They've always been negotiable. Uh, it can still be an option that consumers can pursue off of the MLS through the vehicle of negotiation and consultation with real estate professionals. Say, okay, well, we're going to get to that in just a minute and a little bit more in depth. However, the third point is that now everything is predicated upon written agreements. The same way we never took listings before as listing professionals without an exclusive right to sell, for example, here in Texas. There was always a listing agreement. Well, now there must be a buyer's agreement as well. In Texas, it's a 5-page form called a buyer representation agreement. And if you've worked with me before, you're an inactive client of mine, then you signed one of those, right? I mean, it was basically an employment contract of sorts, right? Just as like a listing agreement is on the listing side. Because if you know me, then I had you sign that 5-page form, which basically gave me the authorization to present offers on your behalf as well as to negotiate on your behalf, right? That makes it official. So that buyer form is still 5 pages long. They amended it, and in addition to that, there's a 1-page buyer form, which is a short form, which also gives the opportunity to consumers to hire an agent to open the door for them, right? As if it's like a showing, like a 1-day showing agreement where they'll pay a fee to have a buyer agents open the door for them, because you literally cannot tour a home now across America. This is across America, not just Texas, without signing an agreement that is explicit in stating exactly what it is that buyer agent will be compensated for acting on a buyer's behalf, right? So they enter this agreement before they tour a home. The fourth thing that changed was, of course, or that transpired was the payment, right? The settlement amount. NAR decided to settle on $418 million over the next 4 years. Right? There's a lump sum up front, and then there's payments along the way, right? And in exchange for that, there's that release of liability to folks like myself that did not bring in $2 billion in sales in 2022. Okay. And number 5, point that I want to make is that the National Association of Realtors contends that there was no wrongdoing, which is kind of like, by the way, we're going to pay the settlement. However, we're sticking to our guns and saying that we've done nothing wrong. Public perception is probably otherwise, but that's a topic for another video, and I don't really want to comment on that right now. We're just going to stick to the facts. So what does this all mean, right? What can we expect? Where do we go from here? Well, let's start with some key elements. First of all, they're calling this the consumer-centric model, okay? And commissions, in essence, are now decoupled. Okay, so there's no broker sharing, right? Each side is going to essentially negotiate for their compensation. Now, the buyer brokers is going to set their services and the fees that they charge to work with buyers. Likewise, listing professionals, this broker is going to set their fees for their services to work with the sellers. Okay, so each side is separate, right? Everybody negotiates their own compensation. And this is also going to be noted on the purchase and sale agreement, which in Texas we call our 1-to-4 family contract. Okay, and it governs. This is going to govern the distribution of fees. Right, there'll be some verbiage in there. Right, at settlement, seller agrees to pay X percentage or flat fee to buyer brokerage in the way of seller concessions for compensation, which they're calling them concessions, plain and simple, right? They don't want to call it compensation anymore. And apropos of all this, the Texas Realtors forms, which we use ubiquitously across the state of Texas, 16 of them were updated and 3 new ones were created. So 16 of our forms, they remain probably the same numbers, the same names of the forms. They've just been updated, right, to reflect these changes as a result of this lawsuit. Now, I've heard some agents say, well, we can't advertise commission on the MLS. But that's okay. Nothing says that we can't advertise what our sellers are willing to offer in terms of commission on our websites or off the MLS. And that's categorically false, right? And I'm going to read a statement from the Department of Justice, which speaks very, very specifically to that, because the Department of Justice is involved, right? And they're keeping a very close eye on this. So it is referred to as the threat of steering, as, quote, as long as sellers can make buyer broker commission offers, they will continue to offer customary commissions out of fear that buyer brokers will direct buyers away from listings with lower commissions. A well-documented phenomenon known as steering. And this was a statement of interest in the MLS Pin Nozalek case. And this was from the Department of Justice. That was a statement from them. So, it's absolutely false. You can't. You just cannot advertise it. Well, what the statement just said is basically insinuates that we as real estate professionals, we're not taking our buyers to the listings that would only pay 2.5%, for example. It wasn't a full 3%, because they say, well, my fee is 3%. Okay, commissions are negotiable. They always have been, always will be. Let's just say that Santino Properties, my company, charges 3%. Well, if the listing agent was only offering 2.5% through what they negotiated with their seller, we didn't ask. I never asked the buyer for the difference of the 0.5%, right? There was no such thing. There was a field for it, as I mentioned earlier at the beginning of this video, where it was listed that the percentage was listed there of compensation of the gross sales amount. However, it was not a searchable field. You could not filter for properties to show people based on how much commission was being offered. We never did that. I never did that. I don't know, because again, it's against the law to talk to other brokers or agents about their compensation. So I never knew what that was. We never talked about it. I've never, in my 10 years in the real estate business, ever sat down and talked about commissions with another licensee. You know why? Because it's like real estate 101, right? I think it's day one of real estate school. not to do that, not to talk about that, because then it's a violation of the Sherman Antitrust Act. It's taught to us, folks. Most, if not all of us, that are licensees, at least in Texas or in my market, we respect that. Again, I'm not going to make comments about that, but my point to all this is that, you know what all this is, in my opinion now, I will say, is a good thing. So, in a recent study, 28% of home buyers said they had no idea how much their agent was making, even though it's disclosed on the settlement statement, but they still said that, right? So now the strategy is we're going to negotiate buyer agent compensation through the offer. Make us an offer. So I'm gonna tell my sellers, let's just have them make an offer. Let's look at your net number, right? That's really what counts. Let's discuss that. How much? Because it is your objective not to pay any commissions to anybody. Well, at least not a buyer agent, or is your objective to net the most money possible when this home sells? That's a discussion I'll be having in my listing appointments, right? From here on out. So we as listing professionals, when I have those discussions, I'm going to be setting the expectation with my sellers to tell them, hey, listen, just so you know, when the buyer agent submits an offer, they're probably going to be asking you for a concession, a buyer concession, to cover their costs. Especially first-time home buyers, veterans, they can't afford to buy the house otherwise, especially in a high interest rate environment. They just don't have the money to pay their agent, so they're probably going to be asking you for that, and it was kind of already worked into the sales price, so to speak, beforehand, and now it has to be considered, but it's going to be a lot more research that people like myself that take listings are going to have to be doing, right? Well, we thought that the average commission, which by the way in Texas, I've read articles that the average listing commission that they would then share with the buyer's brokerage was 5.5%. So we'll do some research around that, right? But based on how strong the offer is, this will determine how much the seller is going to be willing to pay, right? Again, does it meet their net number objective? Because we perform net sheets, right? We work those up for our sellers. At least I do, with every single offer that comes in, so that way they can know exactly how much it is that they're going to net at the closing table. So maybe a seller will be paying, 2%, maybe 3%, maybe 3.5% at the end of the day to a buyer's brokerage. We just don't know. It's all negotiable, right? But now through negotiation, our position is not weakened. That's a good thing. Remember, my objective as a listing professional is to protect my seller's bottom line. As their fiduciary, I'm going to do everything I can to make sure that they absolutely net the kind of money that they want, and that we meet their sales objectives, right? And that's my job every single day, is to protect the interests of whomever it is that I'm working for, right? But before, we were showing our cards up front, saying, yeah, we'll offer you 2.5%, we'll offer you 3%, whatever. That's with the old way, right? So basically, the seller and their agent used to decide that commission amount up front, how much the buyer's agent was going to make. They would decide that. Now the buyer's agent will negotiate for that. Plain and simple. So now, when I represent a seller in a listing capacity, of course, I'm going to be protecting them from the beginning, like I always have. And I just finished saying that I always have. But now we're not having to negotiate against ourselves. And that's why it's a good thing. Because think about it. We would never say in the listing remarks that a seller would be willing to accept less. It's in our information about broker services, the one-page form that we have to have. It's required by law that all licensees have to present to a buyer or a seller during the first substantive dialogue. It's a one-page form. It's required by law, and it says right there, treat all parties honestly and fairly, and not to disclose as a seller's representative how much they're willing to accept, and a buyer's representative how much they're willing to pay. Their buyers are willing to pay. That's like real estate 101. You have to ask everybody that you speak to during your first substantive dialogue to initial that they received the form, a copy of it, and put the dates. That's like required by law. And if agents are not giving you an information about broker services or an IBS or IABS, as we call it, either one of those two acronyms, they're just not following the letter of the law. But anyway, not here to cast aspersions on anybody's work, right? But we would never say seller going through a divorce, seller needs to net this much. We would be showing our cards. Why? Because we'd be weakening our position, of course, right? So let's just say, for example, they were asking $500,000, right? But we know, because we've already discussed it, that's as a fiduciary, we're having these discussions with the seller because we're working for them in a fiduciary capacity. And by the way, that relationship requires non-disclosure even after the close of escrow. We're required by law to keep those confidentiality of those discussions that we've had. Well, we know through those discussions that the seller's willing to accept $475,000. They're willing to go all the way down to $475,000. Are we going to list that in are we going to write that in the listing remarks? Seller willing to accept $25,000 less. Of course we're not going to do that. We would never say that to anyone, verbally or in the remarks section. But that's basically what we were doing before in offering X percentage of commission during the old model, in the old way of doing business. So that's it, right? As a professional real estate advisor, I'm going to tell you right now, I've been in this business 10 years now, and the buying and selling of real estate, of houses, isn't going away. And guess what? Salespeople like me are not going away either. The more information becomes digitized, the more the use of artificial intelligence becomes more prevalent, the more that human beings who buy and sell homes need other human beings to help advise on that process to get to the optimum desired results, right? Optimal results. So if not, we'd have been obsolete a long time ago, believe me. As we've seen the industry evolve over the years, the one thing that has remained constant is that it's a relationship driven business, and that's simply not going to change. I don't see it changing anytime soon. So buckle up, accept the change, folks, because it's the law now. And seek guidance when needed from a pro like me, because we all know that I'm more than happy to be a resource. Uh, um, Love to answer questions. So reach out to me with questions about real estate. My number should be posted here below or maybe up above. If you worked with me before, my number's the same. I did start using another number. Of course, you know the 210-376-9286. But I started also using an office number, which is 376-TALK. It's a lot easier to remember, right? 210-376-TALK, 376-8255. So reach out to me, text, phone call, email, DM on one of the social platforms, whatever's easy for you. If you have any questions about some of these changes, yes, they're sweeping changes. Yes, it's a little bit more radical of a change than I've ever seen in 10 years. That's just me personally. But I tell you what, I think it's a good thing. If I can interject a little bit of just one bit of opinion there. I've said it a couple times already. I think it's a good thing. Hopefully you found this video helpful and of service to you. I'm Realtor Bert Tade. I'm also broker owner of Santino Properties LLC, a boutique brokerage which specializes in the unique and effective use of marketing to help our buyers and sellers win in a competitive San Antonio marketplace. Thank you for watching my video. Hopefully this has been helpful, and we'll be talking to you very soon. Take care.